Hello, friends. Welcome once again to the Perfect Bound Podcast. This is a podcast all about anything and everything comic books and comics related, brought to you by the Panel Jumper. My name is Ben. With me, as always, is Mr. Cole Hornaday.
Hey there.
And joining us is a new member of our team, Lola Lindell. Hello, Lola. Welcome to the podcast. Your very first one.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. So for people who have watched the Panel Jumper, our last episode, the Jungle Queens episode, Lola was a very important team member on that one, and we decided to just bring her into the fold. Whether she will regret that or not, that remains to be seen. She seems to be having a good time so far.
Well, her sister Darian said, my sister Lola has all of this experience. She's experienced with filmmaking. She has script direction, and she'd like to volunteer to do that. And I said, that sounds awesome. And then at one point, halfway through the shoot, Ben and I looked at each other. We were like, how have we done this without a Lola?
With stars in our eyes.
We need to keep Lola on retainer. No, we need to. So now, I mean, she's part of the family. As you may have already seen, Gene Ha drew her into, drew the three of us. It's codified. We're all the Pirates of Penzance.
What a wonderful segue, Cole Hornaday. Our interview with Gene Ha just happens to be the subject of today's podcast. And stay tuned to the end of the show for a very special update about what's going on with the Panel Jumper. Cole, why don't you start us off here?
I will. Gene Ha is a 4-time Eisner Award winner, famous for notable projects like Sue DeConnick's Wonder Woman Historia, and of course, Alan Moore's Top 10, and more than I have the time here to note. I first became acquainted with Gene in 1994 when he was illustrating Dark Horse Comics' Octane, about a 9-foot-tall creature of sinew, muscle, and auto parts with an insatiable appetite for motor oil and action. Gene's art and imagination were an utter revelation for me and comic book readers as well in the 1990s. Unlike his peers of the day, Gene's art was lush, fresh, and proportional. His illustrations were practically Baroque in their hyper-realistic detail. Now, I remember walking into his home studio in Bloomington and getting an early look at his artwork for the X-Men spin-off Ascani Sun, I should say, and feeling deeply unnerved by the realization that I was in the presence of not merely an illustrator of funny books, but a true artist in the classic sense. Gene has only given the world outstanding work since that time. In 1998, Gene borrowed a handful of my own character designs, in addition to lifting my name to pepper his world building for Alan Moore's Top 10 universe. He also drew the three of us as pirates from the Pirates of Penzance, and that is unbelievably marvelous. In 2016, Gene unleashed May, his first creator-owned series about a girl who follows her missing sister through a portal into a world of bizarre technologies and giant cats. Please welcome the extraordinary Gene Ha.
Great to be here, everybody.
Gene, right off the bat, is everything that Cole said correct?
Yeah. Well,
see, there's this thing where, like, if somebody says, if there's a story you're unhappy with, like, if you're a writer, if you're unhappy with the writing, if you're an artist, you're unhappy with the drawing, and somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, this is my favorite story ever," you might think it's modesty to say, "I'm not happy with it. I don't think it's a great story." But what you're really saying to that person is, you have horrible taste, and I don't respect you as a person.
True.
So
yeah,
there's stories where it's like, oh, I could have drawn that one better. But if I start picking them out, and there's somebody out there who's like, but that's my favorite, that's my problem, not their problem.
That's right.
I'm not seeing what's good in it.
But back to the question at hand: was there anything I said just now that was true?
That was
only
true.
one.
Only one thing that's true. That's right. There he is, right there on the cover, and that was number. So Gene told me this. I learned this. We went to Chicago, the Wizard World Chicago convention, and we would share rooms with Gene and friends. And he had left the artwork for who was the dog cop that was
Kemlo Caesar.
Yeah. So, and he had left an 11 by 17 Xerox of the artwork of Kemlo, and everybody stopped and said, "Cole, look at that." I'm like, "Yeah, I know, it's Gene's, it's marvelous." And like, "No, look at his T-shirt." And so I became, as part of Gene's and Xander Cannon's world building for that comic book series, I was kind of like the Tommy Hilfiger in the universe. And I have never stopped crowing about how cool and how grateful, how much I appreciate all that. But let's talk about you, brother. So you've been working on May for,
Yes.
what, 2016. And I want to talk more about that project because you put a lot of forward thinking into it. It took you some time to get around to writing and publishing your own work as an individual artist. What took you so long?
Well, okay. Before I wrote May,
Hmm.
the thing I would always say was, I'm going to work with the best writer I can work with, and so far that's never been me.
Okay.
And then what happened with that is, I'm not going to name names, but there was a project where me and a writer were working together.
Hmm.
It was going to be a creator-owned project, and then the writer disappeared. He stopped answering his phone and his email. The project died. The editor and I could not get a hold of him. He was
Hmm.
fine, it turned out, but long story. But
Hmm.
at that point, it's like, well, I've kind of run out of my excuses not to work on this project I've been kind of doodling around with and wanting to write for a while, but now I'm out of writers and it's me. So,
It's
so I
you.
finally went ahead with it. Yeah.
And it's a portal story. Have you always had a fascination with portal stories?
I really have. Yeah, just the idea of, I mean, I was an awkward kid. So being able to go to a world where people would look at me as being exactly the same person I am on Earth, but over
Hmm.
there, I'm awesome and I'm a hero. It just
Hmm.
sounded amazing.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I just thought and then just also a world where the things that were in their world, the things they think are everyday are just fantastic to me, like
Hmm.
alien creatures, alien foods, weird languages, uh, people dressed up like Barsoomian barbarians in brass clothing that's
Yeah.
very skimpy that looks like swimsuits. It's just like, wow, that'll be awesome.
So Lola, I remember you commenting about the dialect they spoke in.
Yeah, it took a little while to like figure out like how everyone was speaking. And I picked up on the dad speaking a little bit differently,
Hmm.
like at the very beginning. And was like, is he speaking in an accent? Did they just not have enough room for all of the articles and the words? But once
Yeah.
the reveal happens, obviously,
Yeah.
we get it. But the language was definitely something that really stuck with me. And how do you come up with what words you're gonna to create in different languages?
Oh yeah. Well, I wanted the fantasy world to have the names to sound a little bit exotic, and a little bit fantasy, but I didn't want to go with the popular options for like I had weird reasons for not going with them, like ones that sound like medieval Renaissance English names. Sounded like the streets of the pretentious subdivision I grew up on. So I grew up on Lincroft Lane, and there's Foxcross Lane. The whole subdivision was called Knollwood, and it's like
Mm.
it makes me think of annoying preppy kids, which I was kind of one, but German and Swedish sounded a little bit too heavy metal to sound right to me for this world. Uh Japanese was just too anime, and I'm Korean, so it just sounded wrong. And then began I've always been fascinated by the Czech Republic, Czechia.
Yeah.
And when I began looking at those words, it's like, oh, these are really fun and they sound great. And I can't read it all, but there's a Slavic languages culture and language professor who I think inside the book who helped me out with translating names and also inventing new words in Czech, like a Czech would do it. Um, and that's how we came up with all these interesting new names and words and fantasy creatures.
That's
So I
fine.
would ask her, yeah, what would you call a lion dragon combination? And she made up words for things like that.
You think so many people in this? I can't find her name.
Oh, oh God,
Uh,
wrong book.
um, well, yeah, I was curious about why you lean toward Czech culture and language.
Um,
Uh,
well,
but
there's
I
also
love.
a reason beyond the there's a reason beyond the just the sound of it.
Mhm,
There's also just Czech culture and language. Well, Czech history is very has a lot of humor and philosophy to it that you don't find in a lot of other countries.
mhm.
First of all, they have almost no military glory in their history.
Interesting.
Like their
Yeah.
most famous battle is getting their, I believe, their it's like the Battle of White Mountain, and it's where they first took the representatives of the Holy Roman Empire, who were saying, "Okay, you subject people need to behave," so they threw them
Mhm,
out of a tall window, which then started, I believe, I'm going to get bits of this wrong, but which then led to the Battle of White Mountain, where they lasted for like 30 minutes and then they all ran.
mhm,
And that's like one of the most famous battles. So their sense of humor about this type of stuff is amazing. When they left the Warsaw Pact and being dominated by Russia, their first prime minister was a playwright and philosopher.
Václav Havel.
Right. So yeah. So they're an amazing people with amazing language and amazing culture. And I just thought, wow, this they'd be an amazing people to have be the ones who found a doorway to this fantasy world
Mhm,
and then
mhm,
colonized it and then get cut
mhm.
off before things like quantum physics and World War One happened.
Right. Great. Um, I I love those textures, but you've always kind of leaned towards Slavic imagery. Like I remember with Ascani-san, he
Oh
had,
yeah.
I think he had skull,
Yeah.
dog skulls or something with Russian writing on them and things like that.
Oh, on his shoulder pad, he
Yeah.
had the Russian word matchstick written on it, which
Okay.
after doing some reading, it was the name for somebody who lives fast and dies young, a matchstick.
Ah,
Gotcha.
yes.
Yeah. All
Oh,
right.
also,
Yes.
a big thank you to University of Chicago's Professor Malin Sternstein, who I
Gotcha.
still haven't met,
Really?
but yeah, we did a lot of just emailing back and forth and stuff like that. Someday I actually need to just go to the University of Chicago and say hi.
Okay. What was her take on it? Did she give you any feedback on the story?
Oh, she enjoyed it, but also she just enjoyed getting to play with the language in the way that in the
Sure.
academic world you usually don't get to do.
You dream of doing something
Yeah.
like that goes out in the real world beyond the ivory towers. But um, so my experience with you as an illustrator is that you always use or nearly always used live models. And I know you had an image of one individual you used as a live model, but how many of the characters who were featured in May were literally drawn from life?
Oh, okay. So when you first met me, I lived in a small college town, Bloomington, Indiana.
Right.
Um, so it was really easy to go out, meet young athletic people who looks vaguely superheroic. Now I live in a Chicago suburb of it's kind of blue collar and also kind of a lot of office workers.
Yeah.
And it is a lot harder to just meet random people, especially ones who look super heroic.
Yeah.
So that does not happen as much.
I don't know, Gene. You used our mutual friend Art Lyon for a lot of models. I've never seen him as being an individual who is either athletic or superheroic, but I saw Art's nose in so many Justice League stories. Art's nose and his chin.
Yeah, he has a great chin. He had a yeah, and especially at the time. I mean,
Very
everyone's
thorough chin.
cartilage cartilaginous tissues tend to get
Sure.
bigger as you get older.
Yeah,
But especially at the time when I was shooting him, he had like the perfect nose for Daredevil,
gotcha.
which is stereotypically Irish.
Just yesterday, I had lunch with the woman you utilized as Synesthesia Jones
Oh
in
yeah.
Top 10. Jenny and Kurt are actually in town from Salem, Massachusetts. So I said hi for you already. Anyway, enough inside baseball with the Hornaday Ha team.
Wait, let me just say one more thing.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Art has a very superheroic face, especially at that time when he was like 30 years old.
Right.
But the thing is, very few of us, and not myself, have superheroic bodies.
Hmm.
But if you throw a superheroic body under a lot of people's heads,
Hmm.
Suddenly that head looks amazing in a way
Yeah.
with light paint.
Okay. All right. I still recognize his face instantly, and it gave me a tickle. So I want to talk more about, I want to try and engage everybody in this, talk more about the world building and the ideas that went into your particular Portal universe. What Portal stories inspired you to design this one?
Oh, let me see. I mean, the biggest one was Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
And there are things in the Wizard of Oz. I've got. Do I have to admit the things I love most about the Wizard of Oz are things I couldn't steal,
Huh.
like the fact that it's also Alice in Wonderland, that it's worlds that do not follow the same logic as our world. So and it like the logic of Oz books are not always consistent, but there are things like in some of them they say like you cannot die.
Mhm.
Uh, the people don't form coherent normal governments there. They just tend to be like everyone acts as inside of a society acts as a mob and all decides we're gonna have a king or we're gonna have a wizard ruling us. No, we hate that wizard. We're gonna have a witch ruling us. Blah blah blah. Um, and it all falls. Oz falls apart when you try to make it realistic,
Yes.
which is what every adaptation does. So I didn't want to try to copy that too much.
Right. Right. Ben,
Um,
Ben, do you have a favorite Portal story?
Uh, that's a question surprised me, Senator. I wasn't prepared by my team for the answer. I'll have to talk to my people and get back to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank
wait,
you.
okay. So
Uh,
Lola,
yes.
Lola.
Well, I mean, there's so many to choose from. But I think my very first uh Portal story that I fell in love with was also The Wizard of Oz.
Mhm.
Um, and Alice through the Looking Glass and all of those ilk and I felt a lot of that in May as I was reading it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, I,
Let me just say, okay, so
yeah, go
the
for it.
thing I love about Wonderland, through the Looking Glass world, um, and Oz, is that they're worlds that don't make sense to us as adults,
Hmm.
but also they don't make sense to kids in exactly the same way the adult world doesn't make sense to kids,
Hmm.
which is what makes them such amazingly useful tools for like looking at the world and seeing how it doesn't make sense in real life. Um, and in a sense, like part of what I was doing wasn't creating that type of nonsensical uh, world of traditions like they did in those books, but I was creating a world where Abby, the older sister, who's an action hero and
Hmm.
who visits it first before she comes back and brings her sister many years later, where she thinks she knows how that world works.
Right.
And she's an action hero, so sees every problem in that world as one that can be solved by punching it.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that when May gets there, she starts seeing you keep on punching things, but the problems don't get solved. And it's a different world. And it's the part of the contrast is also it's the illogic of people.
Hmm.
And not just people in that world, but the people from our world when they go there,
Hmm.
trying to impose their ideas on it. And it doesn't always make sense. And things don't always work the way you expect.
Yeah, I was thinking about what is my favorite Portal story, and I mean, from childhood, it was John Carter.
Ah, yeah.
And because when he went to Mars, he was a superhero. He was already an athletic guy. He was a successful soldier. But when he went to that world, he could leap tall buildings in a single bound. He was already a good swordsman, but now he had this extra strength because, supposedly the miracle elixir was the gravity on Mars made him that much stronger because Earth's gravity is stronger, is heavier, which was really oversimplifying, but it was Edgar Rice
Yeah.
Burroughs, and it was like over 100 years ago the man wrote the stories, so you can't be too touchy.
Yeah.
But yeah, and all the weird creatures and all that stuff. But I just love the fact that that I could go to Mars and be able to leap over pyramids and kick a
Single
Barsoomian Green Martian into the next world. What's that, Ben?
Nothing. Leap over pyramids in a single bound.
That's right. I was trying to think of Martian architecture or Barsoomian architecture, and I couldn't. I wasn't pulling up anything, so pyramid. Uh, we were talking earlier about how kids relate to these kind of portal stories, particularly Wizard of Oz. Did you set out to make May a young adult story?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't follow all the traditions of young adult stories the way you're kind of supposed to. Like they're supposed to actually be a classic young adult story.
Hmm.
They haven't graduated from high school, and
Hmm.
May has just graduated from high school a few months before the story starts. And
Right.
her older sister is 21 years old, partially because I wanted her to be able to come back to Earth and legally get drunk.
Yes.
So that
Sure.
was kind of like I made her as young as I could and still have that happen.
Okay. Great.
But yeah, there's definitely things I was doing where I was trying to do that, and I got advice from librarians like having her get drunk was an important part of the story, but I was advised by a librarian, you can't show the characters drinking. Some parents will just freak out if they see that in a comic book.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's off panel, that's off screen.
So she could be intoxicated and be obnoxious and get into fights with bigger boys, but you couldn't see her throwing them back. Is that
Yeah,
right?
because yeah, so essentially the kids can read that she got drunk, but the parents
Okay.
can't just browse and say, "That's a beer."
Yeah. So you didn't get to draw the little cartoon bubbly things that people in illustrations experience when they're. So that must have been really throwing you, Gene. But you did okay. You did fine.
Yeah, I think I can draw people drunk. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I guess.
it's method acting. You just have to get drunk and then you draw and it's all going to look, yeah.
That's right. What did you love most about telling this story?
Oh, it's like so I spent most of my career drawing action stories and usually superhero stories. And it definitely it's a world where the older sister Abby would definitely fit in because the Kelly Sue DeConnick kind of describes it as instead of musicals where you express your feelings through music, instead
Mhm.
of a superhero story, you express it through a fight. And whatever conflict or personal distress you have, you resolve it or express it through violence.
Mhm.
And I've drawn so many stories like that, and then I'd also been kind of watching both real life people who are always trying to find a person to blame for their problems so they can punch them or oppress them or hit them or be horrible to them as if that would solve the problem and it not doing anything because that's not they're even if they're from the people they support the bad idea, they're not the people creating the bad situation.
Mhm.
Or frankly, our whole nation during the 2001 2002 Iraq Afghanistan wars, well, especially not the Afghanistan war, but the Iraq war,
Mhm.
uh, blaming the wrong people for the 9/11 attacks and just saying, well, they look like people who we should attack for this, and that'll solve the problem. And it obviously everyone nowadays agrees, oh yeah, it didn't solve anything.
Nope.
Yeah, how'd that turn out?
And it radicalized way too many people. We already had enough people hating us, and look what it did for us.
Yeah.
I'm in agreement. So the book May started out through Dark Horse, and then you went to Lion's Forge. You kept, but you kept dual numbering systems when it went to Lion's Forge, right? So you had this
Yeah,
is the Lion's Forge issue one, but it's actually the ongoing series issue number, say 7 or something like that.
yeah.
Was there a reasoning behind that? I mean, beyond,
Uh, I mean,
were you worried about losing
publish.
readers?
I did not care how they numbered it as long as
Okay,
people could figure it out.
okay.
But publishers do like having a number one issue.
Yeah.
And then as it goes along, you always assume that the sales are going to go down with subsequent issues.
Hmm.
And the other thing is like at Dark Horse, they wanted to keep. I can be a slow artist, and I try to keep this a clean style so I draw faster, hopefully. But I still was not quite monthly.
Hmm.
So one of the big changes they have in the definitive edition is that they released a backup issue as a month early, an issue early.
Right.
So it's out of order. And then in the floppy monthly series, and then in the previous collections, what's issue 6 or chapter 6 should be chapter 7, and what's chapter 7 should be chapter 6.
Okay.
And the definitive edition, I finally got to put that in the right order.
I mean, I can see why you're so excited to have this definitive edition out, just to, like correct all that. When May was becoming a property that would when you were like realizing it, Did you have to pitch it to Dark Horse, or did they come to you and say, "Hey, you've worked in the business so long. Do you have anything?"
Uh, Actually, an editor, Scott Alley, came up to me at Chicago C2E2, and we began talking about like if I had a project that'd be interesting. So I began describing May to him. He was very interested. And then he got kicked out of comics for good reasons before he could edit the book.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that. Um, and then you did a Kickstarter to collect what the Dark Horse series
Yeah,
of Starbound?
no, actually, I planned the Kickstarter before I began talking to Dark Horse.
Oh, is that
And
right?
so
Okay.
when I began talking to Dark Horse, I mentioned I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter to get these, the first like 48 pages of story out, and they were fine with that. So,
Okay.
and then they re-released that later as the first. They
Okay.
divide that into two extra sized first issue, second issue,
Mhm.
uh, as floppies.
Gotcha. Um, and the definitive edition, I noticed that you went back and added pages here and there to bridge certain sequences. How did you go about choosing how you were going to do that? Were there parts that kind of like nagged at you that you felt like you needed, or were they moments that got edited out, or there were that were edited out as a film would be lose footage to the cutting room floor?
I'm because I was mostly working in very kind of a tight, trying to get the story beats out very
Hmm.
effectively, and also after the first two issues, it was 22 issues each.
Hmm.
Um, I was kind of limited in how much I could say, and trying to just make sure that everything I wanted to say in the story got out that was essential. And then later it was like there are some other things I would have liked to have said if they could have gone beyond 22 pages per issue.
Gotcha.
So that's how those got added in. Like there's a section where I describe a piece of technology from the other world called a fulminator, which is a device that can ignite something from a distance without traveling in a beam. It just teleports a spark to something that's flammable,
Yeah.
which is something I stole from a short story by Frank Herbert, but he gave it a different name.
Okay.
And I kept on thinking I'm going to explain this someday in one of these issues, and I never did. And it's like, ugh, I gotta explain that now.
I went back and looked at that part because I remember in one of the first issues, I think it's the first issue where the people from the other side come through, invade the gang members or whomever, and the one super duper tall guy with the broad shoulders and the weird brow, he's got something like a big lighter and he flicks it and the car blows up. And then
Yeah.
we come back to that later, and I'm like, oh, that's just technology that we're not going to explain because it, for whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
but I did need to go back and go, okay, what was that from? And trust me, I'm not a guy who goes back over stuff. I'm always like boring through. I want to go back to you made the comment earlier about you feeling self-conscious or at least being told by editors about the time that you take to put all the detail into your work. And I remember you being very concerned about that when you took on Top 10 and you hired, or at least you paired up with Xander Cannon to help you do the art. I recall you being concerned about the architectural work and because there was this whole world that needed to be built in this city in another dimension. Xander, by the by, went on to do Kaiju Max, which we talk about in our panel jumper episode. Here be Kaiju. And Xander went on to have a very successful career as almost a comic book artier in his own right, and lettered May. So I'm getting off the beam here. Why didn't you choose someone to help you, or did you feel at any moment inclined to ask someone to help do background work the way Xander did?
Oh, actually, okay. So, my fantasy when I was doing detailed backgrounds was these are so hard and I
Mhm.
don't enjoy them, but I want them done well. And I wish I could work like Dave Sim on Cerebus, where he had Gerhard doing amazing
Right, right,
backgrounds.
right. Yeah,
And Gerhard was clearly a much better background artist than Dave Sim ever was himself.
sure. Yeah.
But after a certain amount of time, and especially after began working with Xander, I quickly realized, oh, Xander's the Dave Sim. I'm the Gerhard.
Oh, get out of here. No,
It
that's
is. It's
not
true.
true.
It's totally true.
No, no.
Xander is a
So full
loose,
of beans,
cartoony.
Gene Ha.
expressionistic artist who's great at like these just big dramatic graphic designs and body language and the facial expression, all that, and graphic boldness. It's all these Dave Sim specialties. And I'm the guy who can do these super detailed backgrounds beautifully.
Mhm.
And we played around with roles on the
Okay.
first issue and part of the second issue, and we quickly realized, okay, Xander needs to do the layouts and figure out the storytelling,
Mhm.
and then I need to do the finishes and especially the backgrounds. And Xander would do he might do a sketch of on a separate sheet of paper what the background looks like and a map of a building or a room or a set.
Right.
But I was the one who was going to fill in all the details
Gotcha. Okay.
because I'm a Gerhard.
Uh, oh, fine.
Gerhard is an amazing artist. He's
He
a great
was,
artist.
yes, he is an amazing artist, and he did the two of them did a signing in one of the last couple of collected Cerebus the aardvarks, and um, I felt that they, not unlike you and Xander, managed to blend your styles very, very successfully. So the qualities were similar. You know, they weren't. It wasn't like one one style was superimposed over the other. I felt like they were there. If you hadn't told me, I would not have been any wiser that there were two artists doing these two distinct tasks on this project. I guess
But
that's
I
what
mean,
I'm saying.
yeah, if you look at Xander went solo on Smack's Barbarian with Alan Moore,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you can really see his storytelling style there and
Yes.
how it finishes by him look, and which is very different than mine, and
Yeah.
even how he fills in all the Easter egg extra details is
Yeah.
very different from how I do it.
Yeah. It's true. Um,
I've read
Go ahead.
that Alan Moore is famously like detailed when giving his scripts. When you work with like other writers, when you're the artist on a project, how collaborative is that? Do you work with the writer about what things should look like? Do you present it to them?
Oh yeah.
And
Uh,
I'm sure it's a spectrum, but
I mean, okay, so I just finished up. Well, here's a funny thing. When I was working on May at Dark Horse, I was working with an editor named Daniel Shaban, who's related to the I can't remember his,
Michael.
yeah, Michael Shaban.
Hmm.
And I almost gave him a nervous breakdown because I was late, which is why I had to put the fill-in issue early.
Yeah. Okay.
Uh, and then my latest project I just finished up last weekend was Minor Threats, Welcome to Twilight, the Crab Louie special issue with
Okay.
Gail Simone. And the editor, and I was like months behind deadline because I was getting so crazy about it. But Gail was loving it. Um, Also, I can't remember the name of the comedian who was Patton Oswalt was loving it.
Oswald. Yeah. This is
Yeah,
Patton
so
Oswalt's comic superhero universe of loser supervillains, and it's quite Minor Threats is I highly recommend it.
yeah. Um, so let me see. I'm going to show you a page from it, but yeah. So the editor on that book that I was giving the nervous breakdown to again was Daniel Chabon.
Poor
So
Dan.
I am so sorry, Daniel. You are a saint. You do not deserve to be tortured the way I did. I tortured you again. Uh, but hopefully it will be worth it. Let me see. Oh, okay. Wait, here's a page. But yeah,
Oh
there's
my.
so many things where I could throw it in, and I just went crazy with it. So you can see in the
wow.
background there a little Gene Ha and Gail Simone,
Hmm.
and just having fun with it. Like my version of pop vinyls, I made Pope vinyls,
It's
which is
beautiful.
various martyrs and how they gorily got executed. Uh, I try to find the animal that was like the most inappropriate to make a toy for as a kid, which is a mandrill in heat,
Nice.
and
Oh
making to a My
dear.
Little Pony.
But he's quite floral, I'm sure. I'm
Yeah,
sure his buttocks is quite floral.
yeah, yeah. This,
Color, barely.
yeah, and this is the comic I've worked on that has the most well done, most inappropriate joke I've ever had to draw. And I
What's
can't tell you what it is, but
oh
you'll
no.
know it when you see it.
Okay.
It's something where it's like if Gene Ha had written and drawn it, people would be like, I'm not sure if I can respect or read Gene Ha anymore. But the fact that Gail Simone did it and did it right, it's just like, okay, I couldn't have done that, Gail. That was amazing. That was that joke. You told that joke perfectly. And I drew it, and hopefully you'll get the heat if anyone wants to give us heat.
And that's going to be from Dark Horse, under the Minor Threats imprint. I can't remember what's Patton Oswalt's imprint there, or does he
Oh,
have?
I'm not sure.
Okay,
I don't know if
all
it's,
right,
yeah, I think it's just Minor Threats and everything, just from the
okay,
world of Minor Threats.
yes, all right. A Minor Threat from Minor Threat. Um,
Do
so
you often put either yourself or friends in the backgrounds of panels?
Oh yeah. Let me see. Let me see. The woman inside the kind of tuxedo, like 19th century tuxedo suit, is a comics retailer from Chicago. Uh, R River Von Doom. She works at Goblin Market. The woman next to her with the beautiful braids is Afua Richardson. Let me see. Comic artist. The guy in the bubble helmet is comics journalist in the Chicago area, Elliot Serrano. So yeah, I mean, I really enjoy doing that. And then of course me and Gail. So
Excellent.
marvelous. So you said that the consummate edition, the what are we calling the
definitive edition of
definitive?
May. Yeah, May the
The
definitive
right
edition.
word,
Definitive
but
cut.
it's
The
not the end.
consummated edition.
Yes, well, we just moved out of YA territory with that one.
As
Um,
long as it happens off panel.
so, but you were uh, very particular about saying it's not the end of the story. Not to spoil anything, but what are we looking forward to down the road with May?
uh, so I have a project where I've signed in for now a non-disclosure agreement,
Yeah.
which is what I'm going to be starting, which I'm starting on this started on this week, and I
Okay.
can't say anything about it yet. Like I literally can't say anything about it except that I can't say anything about it.
All right.
It's with a writer I love. I will say that.
Okay.
Who I've worked with before, who is not Alan Moore and is not Gail Simone. I can say that. But beyond that, there's not a lot I can say. But I'm really excited for this.
Okay. All right. But what about May's story?
Okay, but so when I get a chance, I do want to continue it.
Hmm.
So the definitive edition has what used to be the volume one graphic novel and the volume two graphic novel all collected together.
Hmm.
And the end of volume two ties up most of the loose ends and big questions from
Hmm.
the series,
Hmm.
but then it also ends on a cliffhanger, a big reveal of, and then here's where we're going next, which is I'm trying to make it stranger than anything I'd drawn before inside of the series.
Now you actually had a couple of writers other than yourself step in in the latter part of the series. Was that because you needed to help refining the story? How did that come about?
Uh, there's two ways that came about. The first one was I did a project as a favor for Mark Wade,
Right.
and I said, as a favor to me, I'd love it if you wrote a story for
Oh,
May then.
yeah.
So he agreed to it. And then we just had a lot of fun just shooting ideas back and forth and stuff like that. And
Hmm.
me explaining how the world of May and how the storytelling worked in May and stuff like that. Like, for instance, there's almost no captions in May. So we can't use captions. There's almost no flashbacks. We have to be very, you know, if there's a flashback, it has to be to a long time in the past,
Hmm.
very deliberate. You can't jump back and forth. Um, and then also how the technology works in the other world. And when they got cut off, and but yeah, that's how that one happened. It
Okay.
was he did it as a favor to me.
All right. Great.
We were trading favors. The other one is Molly Jane Kramer, who is a local comics retailer in the Chicago
Mhm.
area and comics journalist. And I visually based a character on her. The best friend of May, Dahlia Jane Kramer, is based on Molly Jane Kramer,
Okay. Great.
but their names are spelled differently. Their last names are spelled differently.
Those who know.
Yeah. Um, and I had this whole back history I created for the character Dahlia Jane.
Hmm.
Like she's a freshman student at Purdue University in Indiana.
Yep.
And I began doing research on Purdue because I decided to do a focus issue on her. Um, and I mentioned this to Molly Jane, and she said, "Oh, I went to Purdue University." And I was like, "No, I did not know that." And suddenly part of my research began asking Molly Jane what it was like being a girl who looks exactly like Dahlia Jane Kramer going to Purdue University, who's also a geek. And I based a lot of Dahlia Jane's geek passions
Hmm.
because she's a huge geek.
Yep.
on Molly Jane Kramer. So suddenly the characters were converging so much, and I was just transcribing Molly Jane's experiences at Purdue to
Ah,
form the story.
okay.
And I just had to stop and I said, okay, this is clear that you are writing the story now. Let's just make this official. You will write this issue, and then I will translate it into comics. And that's how that happened.
Did you make her head explode when you gave her that offer?
She was excited.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
and she was not used to taking a story and translating it into comic script formatting. That was her only problem with it.
Okay. All
But
right.
once she described the story to me or wrote the story in a form, and then I just would retype it and re-edit it so it looked like a comic script, say, okay, so is this how you want to do this? And it's like, yes, yes, that's it. She would approve it then. I
So,
was her amanuensis.
gotcha. You her amanuensis. So May, I've always kind of seen May as one of your dream projects because you've wanted to strike out on your own as an independent creator and be the chief cook and bottle washer when it came to telling your own stories. We over 20 years ago, I remember us, DMing on Facebook and talking about and talking about what does it make, what type of stories would you want to tell. So I know that as an artist and someone with an infinite ability to be creative, that's not the final chapter on what you're doing, but do you have another dream project, another dream genre that you'd like to explore? What kind of stories would you like to tell in the future?
I mean, they'd mostly be short stories after this, but I mean, I would love to tell more stories of May because
Okay.
I know there's been God, it's kind of funny how much I've been influenced by reading Frank Herbert when I was a kid and his not
Yeah.
just his novels, but also his essays
Mhm.
about writing stories and his short stories. But just how he talked about how you structure a big epic story into little sections and then build and build and build and build. Uh, and so I know where this is building to and where it's
Mhm.
like essentially I know the scene where it's Paul Muad'Dib blowing up the shield wall with atomic bombs.
Mhm.
And the story is kind of leading to something that's the equivalent of that in the story structure in volume three.
Okay.
And we have not gotten close to getting there yet, but we're building towards that. Everything's been building towards that.
We'll steal from the best, Gene. That's the way it works. I don't want that to be a final note for our conversation, implying that you're a thief. So
Oh, no, no, I mean, I do not, I don't think I know of any creator I respect who does not believe that you steal from the best
yeah, yeah,
and you acknowledge who you stole it from.
yeah.
You like, you put a big bumper sticker on it and say, I stole this from so and so.
True. Well, what do you say, folks? Should we let Mr. Ha go along his merry way?
Yeah, Gene, thanks so much for joining us. May, the definitive edition will be released by Oni Press this April 2025. So that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Is that
you can
that
pre-order
that's
now.
what I read on the internet? Is that still the case?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I believe it's coming out April 8th. Also, let me make an offer to anybody out there.
Yeah.
If anybody, whether it's a library, a comic shop, has a reading club, or if it's just like three or four friends who decide to do a reading club for their month of May the Definitive Edition, I will come in for free. And if you can schedule, if my schedule is free and your schedule is free, I will Zoom kind of like this and discuss the book with you.
It's a
I
very
love
generous
that.
offer.
That's awesome.
I love that. Well, thank you, Gene. It's so good to see you. Thanks for reaching
Yeah.
out to us and asking us to support you, which I've always been perfectly happy to do. Thank you for the beautiful artwork you did for the three of us for the
Oh,
panel
you're a delight to draw, all of
introductions.
you.
Yeah. And it still like tickles my head. It's on the wall over there. It still tickles me to an extreme to have that to have that
Yeah.
art, to have that. And I don't look like that now. I've now become a professional Santa Claus, so I'm more silky and more beardy. But
we can alter the colors.
okay,
Exactly.
all
Oh,
right.
I just realized that Top 10 is the portal fiction where Cole Hornaday goes to another world and turns into a superhero fashion designer.
And with that, I think we have to leave. Gene Ha, thank you so much. If people wanted to explore more in the Gene Ha universe, where should they go?
Oh, just geneha.com, and the social media I'm most active on right now is Blue Sky. I'm pretty easy to find there.
Find everything Gene Ha related at geneha.com. We appreciate him coming by the show to give us an update about May, the definitive edition. Now, Cole and Lola, we have some updates about what's been happening with us lately. So, as we mentioned before, the last episode of the Panel Jumper was the Jungle Queens episode, which I'm not even going to look up and see when that was released because it would just depress me. But what are we doing in the meantime?
Well, in the meantime, we are producing our very first feature-length documentary about well, a local. He's a local artist because he lives in Seattle, but he is a transplant from the United Kingdom of Peter Antonio, the psychic comedian. And we have been working our elbows. Actually, no, Ben has been working his elbows off editing because we've finished nearly all of our
no more elbows.
He has no more elbows. So there's just a void right here. But we finished all of our principal photography less than a year ago. Recorded many live performances. Interviewed friends, neighbors, collaborators overseas, and then Ben got to work, and he has put together. I don't know how rough he considers it. I don't consider it to be that rough a cut of the entire film, but it's lovely and it's really exciting. And every couple of weeks we get together and what do we do?
Oh, well, we have dinner, we watch a cut. But I also, it's not just I'm the one pushing the buttons. Like Lola has had a very heavy
Forgive me.
In shaping this story. I don't want to.
Lola has transcribed the whole thing. Lola also has taken care of all the behind-the-scenes paperwork, documentation,
all this stuff neither Cole nor I are very good at. Honestly.
No, that's why, friends, you need a Lola. Okay, let me rephrase my previous comment that Ben and Lola have been doing an extraordinary job. They've been working their elbows off while I sit and eat bonbons and licorice. But all this to say that what we have accomplished so far is pretty exciting and very inspiring. And I know that I have confidence that you will all be very excited about what we have to share with you. Peter Antonio, Apostle of the Impossible.
Yeah, it's getting very close. Stay tuned to thepaneljumper.com for updates on that.
So on Facebook, you can if you are so inclined, go find the Peter Antonio Apostle of the Impossible page, like it, get some updates. Who knows? You might get invited to a screening.
Ooh. Yeah, and to your question earlier, it's in a pretty good shape. I think it's just just some softening of the edges here and there, and some polishing of things there and here, and it should be good. This is our first full length documentary of an unscripted piece, and so it's been quite the learning experience.
Yeah, we came together on a 4-act structure. We've all been learning a lot of things, and I have always had incredible trust in Mr. Lawrence's visual storytelling talents. He always astounds me. I'm just always going back to the early days of the Panel Jumper, and he'd send me a rough cut, and I was astounded at his capacity. I was astounded at his capacity to collaborate, but also just to bring his own voice. And that's why we wanted Lola to be with us too, because she's also an individual who possesses those talents and that kind of voice. It's pretty great.
All right. And with that, I think we'll bring the show to a close. Find everything that Cole Hornaday, Lola Lindell, and I do at thepaneljumper.com. Subscribe to the show, Perfect Bound Podcast. Send us an email, perfectboundpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, friends, and we'll see you next time.